We're live, Chair.
Good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, the 16th of October, 10 a.m. This meeting is taking place virtually with members of the board, along with the officers presenting the reports. Please, may I ask all members and officers to have their microphones on mute until they wish to speak or are invited to speak. When you're speaking, please also turn your video on. The first item on this agenda is minutes from the meeting on the 31st of July. They're on pages 3 to 6. I propose the meetings and I hope you can take them as confirmed and read. Is that okay with everybody?
Yes, indeed.
Thank you, Manjit. Item number 2 on our agenda is question time, and we have received no questions, so we are moving on to item 3, and that is to advise that there are no other items which the chairman has decided to take as urgent elsewhere on this agenda. Number 4, it is declaration of interest, and may I ask if any members have an interest on any items on the agenda? And I see Mr. Shepherd is
Yes,
there. Mr. Shepherd.
Thank you. For the avoidance of doubt, could I refer to pages 14 and 15, which refers to excess teacher service, teachers' pensions. This I understand to refer to centrally employed teachers who are in the LGPS. I'm a retired teacher with a pension from the Teachers' Pension Scheme. So could I confirm that I have no interest to declare there? Could officer please confirm that for me?
I can confirm that for you, Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. May we then move to item 5, and that is our first substantial report on today's agenda. Most of the items will be introduced by our pensions project manager, Stuart Wells, and I understand Bulesh will be adding to some reports 1 and 4. And that is the Pension Administration Report, July-September 24, Quarter 2, and it is on pages 7 to 28 on your agenda pack. Thank you very much and welcome, Stuart. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, everyone. This is the regular quarterly admin report, and I shall run through the main points. I will start with performance of the pension section at point 5. And the results for the quarter, July to September, are included in Appendix A. The figures do continue to be lower than target, particularly on the business processes. However, performance in respect of notifying members of retirement benefits within 10 days of receiving the paperwork is up. It's increased by 10% when compared to the previous quarter. And the number of pension benefits paid within 10 days has also increased and is now at 89% of cases for the quarter. So it feels like we are heading in the right direction. The team that deals primarily with retirements and deaths have recruited some newer staff that are learning aspects of the role currently, and it's expected that they will be able to process more types of benefits from the beginning of the new year in January, which should help improve the business processes KPIs from then. We've also got 2 additional temporary staff that joined the section at the end of September, and they will focus on deferred benefits to try and reduce outstanding cases. And the workload figures that are shown at point 10 of the report do show that when you look at the number of cases outstanding that can be worked on, that the figures currently are generally stable throughout the quarter. Some have improved, but generally stable. We just need to continue working on ways to improve the time taken to complete these cases in accordance with the KPIs. Moving on to the complaints at point 11 of the report, that there hasn't been any new stage 2 internal dispute resolution procedure cases raised in the last quarter. There was an earlier case already at stage 2 which was not upheld. That case may now be taken to the pension ombudsman by the partner of the scheme member. We'll have to wait and see on that one. With regards to breaches, there were breaches in respect of a small number of annual benefit statements that were issued late due to outstanding admission agreements. These admission agreements were signed in early September, and that allowed us to subsequently issue these statements to 10 scheme members. Given the circumstances, we would not deem these breaches to be material. With regards to audit, during the quarter, there's been one new internal audit report received that related to the initial assessment of the pension regulator's code of practice. The audit team are also currently continuing to work through the pensions increase exercise, and findings from that will be included in the next board report. Back to the code of practice audit, the objective was to provide assurances to management that the requirements to the code of practice had been adequately assessed. And whilst the report gave substantial assurance, a couple of recommendations were made with regards to defining further what a material breach might entail, and to consider adding target deadlines to the tracker along with responsible officers. And the recommendations were accepted, and they will be implemented. Onto the pension website. We have been notified that the pensions website, which includes a general website and also an online portal, the member self-service side of the site, we've been informed that the package will reach end of life on the 31st of January 2026. So we purchased this package from Hayward, our main system providers, 5 years ago. As a replacement for MSS, Hayward have offered Engage, which is essentially a refresh of member self-service. However, Engage does not include the facility to create general web content. So officers have agreed to move over to Engage. Work will begin in September 2025 and is expected to be completed by November 25. So 2 or 3 months ahead of the end of life deadline at the end of January 2026. There will be a one-off implementation fee, but annual fees that were already being paid in respect of MSS will remain unchanged. So with regard to the fund specific content that the new product doesn't include, we've had conversations with LCC Digital Services about a new website to host that area of content. And Digital Services have confirmed that they can build this for us, and they've secured an agreement in principle from their internal board with regards to that. And further talks with Digital Services are due to be held later this month to establish next steps with regards to this new area of website. Once we're clearer on timelines in respect of that aspect of the site, we will issue an update to the board at a future meeting, and also just to say that members will be informed of these changes prior to new websites going live. Back to the code of practice, just a general update here. So further to the report that was presented at the last meeting on the 31st of July, we've been working away addressing the various areas of partial or non-compliance. We've prioritised those areas where there are regulatory requirements to comply. And the following areas of work have been completed or are in progress. An internal document has been created that details the expectations of the chair and has been approved by the LCC's head of law. And this document has been shared with the chair of the board. A refreshed procedure detailing how breaches of law are reported to the pensions regulator has also been created. That's been shared with audit and they're happy with it. And we've got a copy of that attached in the appendix to this report. And then in addition to that, we're also actively working on initial drafts in respect of internal controls, cyber documents. That's now been seen by ICT colleagues and also audit. A transfer guide, which we're well on the way to completing. And then there's going to be some minor changes to our admin and comms strategy just to make it crystal clear that we comply with the code. And once these drafts that haven't quite been completed are completed, they will be shared with audit for comment before we present to the board as part of the annual policy review in April 2025. This leaves one area that is a regulatory requirement outstanding relating to the register of interests, and this is being addressed through a review of the fund's conflict of interest policy. And again, a further update on the code will be presented at the next board meeting. Onto AVC, the AVC framework. So this was the framework that Leicestershire were working on with some other funds to create a national framework that LGPS funds can join to review their AVC services. So that went live 22nd of July, and we have now signed up to the board. We've had agreement to do that, and we're currently drafting an invite to further competition document as part of the work towards securing a new arrangement for AVCs. And we're working with LCC's procurement team on this document. And again, an update will be provided next time. McCloud, there's not a great deal to say about McCloud other than we continue to work on the update of records, and we expect to complete those by the end of March 2025. With regards to the pension dashboard programme, we're now working with Haywards to begin work on connecting our system to the pension dashboards ecosystem, and work is beginning this month on that, and is expected to take around 3 months. And Haywards have supplied us with an implementation study detailing the stages of the process, and we've got a project kickoff call scheduled for this month as well. So the deadline for public service pension schemes to connect to the ecosystem is October 2025. So again, we're well on track for that. And again, we'll provide you with more updates next time. The 23-24 year end exercise has now been completed successfully, with thousands of annual benefit statements being issued and produced by the 31st of August statutory deadline, with the exception being the 10 members that I mentioned earlier on. So they've had theirs. They were just slightly late for the reasons already mentioned. Employer risk. With regards to employer risk, the position as at the 20th of September is shown on point 56 of the report. So these are the cases that we're currently working on. The top one on that grid there, Cleantech Lionheart, that's classed as medium risk. And we gave Cleantech a deadline of the 30th of September. And following this, a final formal letter was issued advising Cleantech that they will be charged £100 for each hour officers spend now resolving the case. I'm glad to say that this has prompted a response, and Cleantech now are actively trying to get things wrapped up with regards to this bond. This approach is in line with the admin and comms strategy, and is definitely having an impact. And several of the outstanding cases from last time have been completed. There's a list of those at point 59. Okay, that was all I wanted to say on the report. Does anybody have any questions that they wanted to raise?
Thank you very much, Stuart. As always, a very comprehensive report. And before we go over to members to see if they have got any areas of concern or any questions, and to recommend this to go to the local pensions committee, I've got two questions. The attachment on page 21, the procedure for reporting breaches, is that to note only, because it says at the bottom updated September 24. Do we have to accept that at this, or is that just for noting? Yeah,
sorry,
go on.
It's just for noting, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Now, the other thing it is not very much related to this report, but in report 6, you are covering already proposed changes the new government might be bringing forward. Now, with the budget on the 30th of October, I'm sure everybody will be watching if there will be any changes that will affect our pension board and pension committee, etc. Now, our next meeting is not until February, and I'm sure, you would include anything in that report, but I was wondering if there is anything detrimental that could have an effect. Could we maybe, as members, have a short briefing after the budget that can be circulated via email?
Yes, sure. Yep, we can work on something for
that
you.
Would be
no problem.
That would be really great. Now, over to members, and I see one hand up, and that is Manjit. Over to you, Manjit.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Stuart. How you doing?
Hi, Manjit. I'm all right, thanks.
Good. And just to start off by just echoing the Chair's comments about the performance, the year end, I think it's fantastic. So well done to the whole team and everybody involved in that. That's really good work.
Yes.
Just to pass on our thanks as well, obviously the chairs and the whole the board as well, to your colleagues. Just a quick question, maybe not a question, just to sort of pick your brains really. On the pension website, you mentioned as all this work is going to happen with regards to the pension website, where we have our own personal or pension type information that the digital team are going to develop. Just a question in terms of the timelines for all of these things. Are you going to be reporting on these as well going forward? So
we will.
Okay,
we will.
Fine.
Yes. We'll keep the board updated as things progress.
And just one other thing for my benefit, I don't know whether it's for the others as well, maybe, is just a sort of pictorial diagram at some point when you think it's relevant to see how all these different websites integrate with each other. Just a very sort of high level, that would be useful just as an aid member to say, well, this one integrates here and this one links into that, just as a very high level. I think just a request from me. I don't know whether others would be interested in that as well going forward. And just one final thing, I think there's a huge opportunity here as well in terms of that website that the digital services team are going to look at to develop is, do we replace like for like, or do we look at more functionality in there which would be useful to employees and pension contributors as well and other stakeholders? That's
good.
Just an open question.
Yeah, good point. I mean, the functionality mainly will be contained within the engage aspect of it. So at the moment we've got the general website, which everyone can access regardless of whether you're a scheme member or not. But then you've got the secure area that members have to register for. So the secure area is going to be replaced by another Hayward product. So MSS becomes Engage. So this is a refreshed version. It's a slightly fancier version, and fundamentally things are the same, but I understand that long term there's more scope for improvement in respect of that particular development. So most of the functionality will be contained within that. But yeah, with regards to the general website, we're absolutely open to everything, and I agree. We do see this as an opportunity to take what we've got and improve on it. And if we can, I'm certainly open to ideas and suggestion from digital services.
That's
and
a really good
we'll work
point.
with them.
Suggestions, asking perhaps the members or stakeholders for that'd be useful.
Okay. Yeah. We'll certainly consider that, Manjit.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks,
Stuart. Well done again. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you,
Joe.
Good point. Thank you, Manjit. I can see no other hands up, Stuart. So the recommendation is on page 17.60 of the agenda. And it is that the board recommends to consider the report, and members' comments will be taken forward to the local pension committee. That is agreed by everybody, and we can then move, and I will only read out this recommendation at the future reports. I shall just point to the page. Thank you, Stuart. And now we're going over to item 6 on our agenda, and that is the local government pension scheme and the current developments. Now, that is on page 29 to 48 of your agenda pack. And you have an Appendix A, which sets out the terms of reference, and Appendix B, which was the funds response. Again, it is over to Stuart. Thank you, Stuart.
Mrs. Page,
And
I'm taking this one. Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, Bulesh, we can. Sorry. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So the purpose of this report is to provide the board with an update on current developments across the LGPS following the 2024 general election. So there's a lot of points on here, and it's a bit of a catch-all document. We don't have this one regularly, so feel free to ask questions as we go along. I'm going to move over to point 6, and we're going to talk about pooling and consolidation, investment fees, and UK investment as well. So these are covered through points 6 to 26 in the paper. On the 20th of July, the new Chancellor set out actions that would be taken to unleash the full investment might of the 360 billion LGPS scheme and make it an engine for UK growth. So that's the 360 billion across the 86 or so LGPS schemes across the country. Terms of reference for phase 1 of the pension review was subsequently published on the 16th of August 2024, and that's the appendix that Mrs. Page has referred to, and that's Appendix A. The government subsequently published a call for evidence with the fund, partner funds, and LGPS Central have responded to. And the partner funds I refer to there are the 8 local authorities that jointly own LGPS Central, our pooling vehicle. Regarding pooling and consolidation, so the first of those 3 points, a letter was circulated to all LGPS funds on the 15th of May 2024 by the local government minister at the time, requesting funds respond to a number of questions related to the completion of pension asset pooling by March 2025, by the March 2025 deadline, as well as how funds ensure that they are run efficiently. The response to that is attached at Appendix B. On the 20th of July 2024, the new Chancellor announced that the local government pension scheme in England and Wales, 7th largest scheme in the world, managing 360 billion as previously mentioned, pooling this money would enable the funds to invest in a wider range of UK assets, and the government will consider legislating to mandate pooling if insufficient progress is made by March 2025. So you can kind of get a feel for the kind of direction from government, past government, new government. They want pooling to progress faster. So that seems to be the general direction.
Can I, you said interrupt if there are any
Yes, of
questions, if I may at this point. I'm totally confused over this because, and help me if I'm not correct, but as our fund is very efficient and we have been running very profitable, what risks can you foresee? Because if they mandate pooling, and so that is really one thing, because I can't see a huge benefit for some pools like our system. Now, the other thing is, and here's I'm confused again. Now, the excuse is that there are 2 billion a year in fees and cost as set out in paragraph 18. Now, correct me if I'm wrong as a layman. So even if the pool would be, if it was pooled, the fees would always stay virtually the same anyway, because they would be transaction fees, investment fees, and whatever. So would they go down? Would it affect it? Or, am I incorrect in assuming there would still be fees and it would not make a great difference? Also, the fee of 2 billion, it is actually very small because, as I understand it, it's shared between the 87 authorities. Just talk me through that one for now. Thank you.
Okay, let's go back to the first one. So the first part was the
risk,
the pooling. Yeah, the pooling risk. So our fund has been, so Leicestershire's fund has been pooling for a number of years. We're one of 8 joint owners of LGPS Central, and we've been pooling assets over a number of years now, to the point where the paper points out how far we've pooled. We're probably towards the top end of our partner funds in terms of percentage of our fund that is pooled. So we've been going at a steady rate. We're looking for the right products that LGPS Central launch. In some cases, they're a direct comparison to what we used to have or had, and therefore it's an easy switch. And in many cases, we have an investment management cost saving as well, so the fees are lower. So we can win on 2 ways here. So we get efficiency within our fund, so we have fewer mandates to manage back at base, and we let LGPS Central manage it, but we also get their additional oversight, their governance, and lower fees. The key to this is doing it in a controlled manner. We don't want to be forced to do it by a particular date. You might end up with the wrong investments being launched, something that might have been built really quickly by LGPS Central without the right governance and oversight, for example. So I think the real key here is making slow and well thought out steps, and that's the risk that we want to try and mitigate the most. So we do things at Leicestershire so that we don't make all the decisions back at base. We engage our investment advisor to help us build the funds, provide us due diligence, and then we run it through our committees. So I feel a well thought out, steady process makes sense there.
So going bigger is not necessarily better; it is more risky, because there isn't the flexibility.
Well, yes and no, I think, is that, there's no easy answer here. The fact that 8 of us partner funds can buy into a single product gives us immense buying power, and that's where the fee savings come from. Leicestershire on its own might be able to invest £100 million into a particular product. As a collective, we might be able to invest £500 million. As a result, the investment manager gives us slightly lower fees. So that's the obvious saving you get. There are other savings in the sense that we need less resource back at our own base then to look after what used to be 25 managers. We're slowly whittling them down, so we're down to 20 soon, and therefore we derive other benefits in the sense that my time is spent looking at fewer mandates, and therefore I can give it more time. Manjit?
So hang on, fees.
Sorry.
Fees.
Not quite there, yes.
And then Manjit.
Okay,
yes.
Sorry. Yes, coming back to fees. It is correct, and I think the paper here points out from about points 18 through to 22 that there are more fees, and it's a very easy statement to make. That the LGPS spends a lot on fees, but you'd expect that. Fees are generally charged as a percentage of the size of your fund. And therefore, as the LGPS has grown, 360 billion now, as it's grown, you'd expect the actual monetary value of your fees to go up. And we have a table across on point 22, which tries to illustrate that point. You can see in the table at point 22, in 2019, the fund size was 4.2 billion. You can see it half the way down the page where it says total AUM, assets under management, 4294. That's 4.3 billion was the size of the fund. And by 2024, the size of the fund is 6.355 billion. So a 48% increase. Now, all things being equal, you'd expect a 48% increase in your management fees as a result. But as a result of pooling, consultation with our managers and beating them down on fees, our fees have gone up by 19%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's also in the backdrop of increasing our allocation to private markets. And the private markets piece is quite important because private markets such as property funds, infrastructure funds, natural capital funds, all the kind of things the government wants us to invest in are inherently more expensive to invest in.
That
they require
was the question. Yes.
Yeah, so not only have we got, lower fees, but we've done that within the backdrop of increasing our allocation to the expensive areas that the government wants us to invest in.
Yeah. That's what I thought. It's Manjit and Simone. Does Simone want to go first before Manjit? Do you have anything to add, Simone? Do you mind, Manjit?
No, I was just going to add to some of the points Bhulesh has made, but actually he's covered what I was going to clarify anyway, so I won't repeat what Bhulesh has already said. It's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Simone. Manjit.
Thank you, Chair. The 2 billion fees all been covered. The question I just had, just came as a result of the Chair's questioning to yourself, was that if we're pooling resources, investing in a pooled investment area, does that mean the diversification gets watered down, so that, in other words, there is a risk if that fund doesn't return, whereas you might have several funds that you're investing in and you're pooling with somebody, and is there a risk there as well, or is that, I'm sure it's all managed well, but just to...
Yeah, so it's a really good question, that. So it's one that's been debated a lot over time. So we still have a huge area of diversification here. We invest in practically every market you can think of, all the way from passive listed equity, computers just buying the top 100 shares in the FTSE 100, for example, all the way down to emerging market debt and even the more exotic bank risk share type investment. So we invest across a really wide range. Now, once you get past 7 or 8 different asset classes, the next one adds a little bit less diversification, and the next asset class after that adds even less diversification. So, we've got 22 managers at the minute, covering everything from, like I say, listed equity all the way down to emerging market debt and everything in between, including infrastructure, property, so timberland even. So you're right, it will water it down, but I think the benefits are better in the sense that we're buying cheaper products, so we've got guaranteed lower costs. So investment returns in the future are not guaranteed. However, the savings are. So if we can shave 30 basis points, so that's 0.31%, we'll take that if we can get a very similar product with the pool than we could have done by ourselves.
It'd be useful to, I guess, to sort of, just to your point about savings, to report on them at the appropriate time, and also if there's been as a result of the pooling, an additional return that we maybe weren't expecting, higher than normal, at some point, to show the benefit of that pooling, if that's possible, Bhulesh, as and when needed.
So coming back to that first point about sharing the savings, so we can probably do something around it, but you'll probably appreciate the fees that we pay managers are commercially sensitive, so we've never done that in the public domain, but I'm sure we can find a way to convey savings to you in a different way. And you broke up for the second part, so I didn't quite catch the second part of the question.
I think it was just reporting on the benefits and the sort of returns that you maybe receive. They are higher as a result of pooling, or there's some other benefits to that pooling as well. Just anything you can think of, yeah.
So that's a really difficult one because once we come out of a product and go into a different product, we don't track the old product. That's the problem. So it's really hard to say.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a really difficult one. Let me have a think and see if there's anything we can do.
But if I may come in, that is the pension committee, isn't it, that deals with matters of such.
Sure.
It is not within our remit as the board, so it's a very difficult one, Manjit. Manjit,
Sure.
have you concluded? Because Simone has got a hand up.
Yeah, I'm finished. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Manjit. Simone, over to you.
Well, I was just going to add really that there is also an issue with sort of flexibility and availability of products, isn't there, Bhulesh, with pooling? And if we are mandated to pool more, then it could mean that we don't have that same flexibility, or we don't have the range of products that we might have wanted access to had we not been looking to pool more. So I think, as Bhulesh has said, there are pros and cons here, and it is a really difficult balance for us to consider. But we will certainly keep you updated if anything does emerge after the 30th of October budget announcement. We'll be keeping our eyes very closely peeled for anything that comes out of that statement.
Thank you very much on that, Simone. As I said earlier on, a short briefing to the members, Pension Board and Pension Committee, would be really great, because, as I said, the next meeting isn't until February. Back to you then, Bhulesh, because you're only in the middle of the report.
Thank you, Chair. So we've just covered down to about point 22, I think. So I'm not going to go back over the fees section, because I think we've got that covered. So I'll move to point 23, which is UK investment. As previously reported to the board, the previous government consulted on the requirement that the LGPS invest up to 5% in levelling up ambitions across the UK. While that branding of levelling up has been removed, the new government has set out their intention to increase investment from pension funds to the UK to boost growth. We've got a table at point 24, and that shows how much the fund has invested within the UK, and it only covers the 4 asset classes that the government asked for. So we included these within our annual report, and you'll notice it's the ones they asked for was how much have you got within UK listed equities, UK government bonds, UK infrastructure, and UK private equity. So taking all of that together, fund is circa 12% invested across those 4 asset classes, and that compares quite favourably when you consider the UK being circa 4 to 5% of the total global GDP. So you'd guess that we're relatively overweight in that respect. But what they also didn't ask for was UK property. So add that onto it, and our 12% gets even bigger. I was going to move on to point 33 on page 35, which is fiduciary duties. I think it's worth pointing out. So in September 2024, the Scheme Advisory Board produced a statement on fiduciary duty and lobbying. The link is within the papers as well. This statement reiterates what kind of ESG considerations are appropriate. So that's environmental, social and governance considerations. Officers will continue to monitor any developments and guidance. However, the report seems to align with the fund's current approach in taking into account sustainability and climate change as part of decision making. The last item I wanted to talk about starts at point 35, and that's review of the LGPS 2022 fund valuation. So on the 14th of August even, GAD, which is the Government Actuaries Department, published an analysis of the 2022 actuarial valuations of the funds in the LGPS. And now they do this every 3 years. So the most recent one refers to our 2022 valuation, and that came out, like I said, in August. The Leicestershire County Council pension funds reported funding level in 2022 was 105%. So that's what our actuary calculated our funding level as at. The analysis from GADS, using standardized metrics such as, for inflation and for discount rates, etc., calculated our funding level to be 116. So an 11% increase, but that's relatively in line with what other funds saw as well. So there's a point there that says 90% of funds actually saw an increase using GAD's estimates. GAD ranks funds on a number of measures, and I've listed at 38 a couple there. So these show the fund's positive position in relation to their peers. So the required investment return to achieve full funding in 20 years, so full funding would be 100%. On the standardized best estimate basis, on that basis, we rank 11 out of the 86. So we're in the top quartile there. And then the required investment return as calculated in the return compared to the fund's expected return. If we assume our current asset mix is maintained, ranks us at 7 out of 86. So what that's trying to tell you is we expect an investment return in the future of Y, and it's ahead of what is needed to be 100% funded. And the gap between that means that we've got quite a lot of headroom, and that ranks as 7 out of 86 there. Other analysis by GAD shows that the fund is rated green, meaning they've found no material issues that may contribute to a recommendation for remedial action in order to ensure the long-term cost efficiency. But there is one exception. The remaining metric relates to asset shock, where they raised a white flag. This flag considers what might happen if there is a sustained reduction in the value of return-seeking assets for tax-raising employers. GAD model additional contributions that would be required by tax-raising employers to meet any emerging deficit. Funds with a high level of return-seeking assets are more exposed to asset shocks and are more likely to trigger this flag. Now, this is a very black and white measure. They look at what is classed as return-seeking assets as being anything that isn't bonds or index-linked bonds. And our fund has circa 7% in bonds, and therefore they rank everything else as being return-seeking, whereas in reality, we've got things like timberland and infrastructure and property, which don't behave in exactly the same way as, say, listed equity does. So they raised that white flag, which is an advisory flag, and that highlights a general issue, but one which does not require any action in isolation. It may have been an amber flag if we had broader concerns, is what they say. Obviously, it doesn't distinguish between the types of return-seeking assets, which have different characteristics, for example, listed equity versus core infrastructure, for example. I appreciate that last bit was quite complicated, so if there's any questions there, I'm happy to answer, but that was the last part that I wanted to talk to at the minute.
Right. I can see no hands up. Are there any other questions to that very complicated report? I assume, Bhulesh, after in the new year, you will bring up an update once we know which way the government is going with, further details.
I suspect there'll be something as part of the budget. If not, I believe they're looking. The HMT and MHCLG are working on the response to everybody's call for evidence, so that there should be something that comes back out. Yes, and we will share that.
Do you think our responses will be heard and noted?
MHCLG and HMT are travelling the country, speaking to all the pools. And we were invited along to a meeting a few weeks ago where it looked like they were listening. It will take them quite an amount of time to get through all the calls of evidence. I believe there was more than 120 responses, so they're hoping to get something back out before the end of this calendar year.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So as there are no hands up, the recommendation is on page 37.45, and we all note that. And with that, we are moving swiftly to agenda item 7, which is on your pages 49 to 85. No, 84 indeed, and that is an update, fund risk and 25 valuation planning, and that is Stuart again. And on page 57 is a pension board valuation plan as an appendix.
I think I'm taking this one as well, Chair. Sorry.
Oh, you're taking this one as well. Oh, well, over to you then, Bhulesh. Double trouble. Thank you.
Thank you. So the purpose of this report is to provide the local pension board with an update on changes to the funding environment since the 2022 valuation. For background, every LGPS scheme is required to complete a pension fund valuation every 3 years. The purpose of the valuation is to check the ongoing solvency of the scheme, assets versus accrued benefits, and to set the employee contribution rates for the following 3 years. The next formal valuation will take place on the 31st of March 2025, and the valuation will be completed by the 31st of March 2026. with new employer contribution rates being certified for the period 1st of April 26 to the 31st of March 29. Officers have already begun planning discussions with Hymans Robertson, who are the fund's actuary. As part of these discussions, Hymans has prepared a paper which forms an appendix to this report and considers the current funding risk environment and outlines the key considerations for the fund heading to the 2025 valuation. Point 7 at the top of page 50 shows the current funding position of the Leicestershire County Council Pension Fund as at the 30th of June 24 at 150%. It compares relatively favourably to the 105 that was reported previously, but there's a lot of pages that you have to kind of read here to kind of put that into context, and I'll try and convey that to you best I can. Whilst this improved funding position is good news, there are limitations to the usefulness of this funding level metric. It's based on a single set of assumptions about the future and asset values at a single point in time. We've got a number of points on page 50 here, which are quite important. So I'm going to almost read these word for word. So what has happened since the 2022 valuation? The fund's assets have increased slightly since the 2022 valuation by around 10%. So the fund was valued at 5.8 billion on the 31st of March 22 and at the 30th of June 24 at 6.4 billion. So that's the 10% increase it refers to there. It's a relatively modest level of returns. You'll have to try and, get your minds back to 2022 and what the world was like. 2022 was a really poor year. Everything pretty much performed poorly, double-digit negative returns during that period of time. It does mean that there's a relatively modest level of returns over that time period, and the fund currently holds a similar amount of money to pay each pound of pension as they did at the 2022 valuation date. Inflation has risen sharply since the valuation date. Benefits have increased by 10% in 2023 and 6.7% in 2024, increasing the value of the fund's liabilities. However, despite these modest investment returns and higher inflationary pressures, the funding level has still improved. The improvement in funding level has largely been driven by an improved investment outlook due to a sharp rise in global interest rates, and that leads to higher expected future returns across all asset classes. It is important to note, however, at this point that future investment returns are not guaranteed, even though we've got a backdrop of higher interest rates. So I hope that that section there helps you understand why we might show a 150% return, but it's predicated on the fact that we're expecting higher returns into the future, and obviously they're not guaranteed. 14 gives you an idea of how sensitive that 150% is. So the improved funding position remains highly sensitive to the future investment return assumption. If future returns are 1% lower than assumed, the funding level would be about 20% lower. We then go on to talk about what the key funding risks are, and they're covered on page 51. The key funding risks the fund continues to manage are listed there. So that's investment risk, inflation risk, cash flow risk, longevity risk. That's pensioners living longer than we expected, climate risk, and employer covenant risk. I won't talk to all of those, but I'll cover off the two bigger ones, if you like, in terms of their impact to funding levels. And that's investment risk first. The funding level. The funding position is based on future returns with a 75% assumed likelihood of being achieved. In other words, there's a 25% chance that returns will be lower than we assume. So we've taken a fairly prudent view here. Most funds within the LGPS will assume between 70 and 80% likelihood for their average returns to be achieved. Fund officers will review prudence levels at the 2025 valuation. Just for reference, that current 75 was 80 the time previously, so we've moved it down in line with others, and we assumed an 80% the previous time because of uncertainties around McLeod, for example. All employer assets are invested in a strategy with a mix of investments held across broadly three areas. So that's growth, such as equities and private equity, protection, such as bonds and index-linked bonds, and income, property, infrastructure, timberland, for example. The investment strategy has a robust refresh annually. So we do that about this time every year, and we take it to the January local pension committee for review. And that that refresh is to balance the risks and opportunities the fund faces. It considers funding level and the appropriate investment risk, and by implication, the investment return, whilst reviewing existing investments suitability. And as our funds funding level has improved over time, we've trying to rebalance the risk that the fund is taking. So we've taken away allocation from the riskier areas, i.e. growth, and we've moved towards bigger allocations towards the income producing assets. So like I keep saying, property, infrastructure, timberland, and the like. The second key funding risk is inflation risk, and inflation is a key risk for funds to manage. Higher inflation increases the cost of benefits, but also has an immediate effect on shorter term cash flow. Inflation has recently fallen back to around 2%, and if anybody's checked the news this morning, it's below 2% now. However, the future inflation targets are uncertain. Persistently higher inflation remains a key risk for pension funds given the current economic climate. For example, if pension increases at 1% higher than the current long-term assumption of 2.5%, again, this will reduce the funding level by 20%. So you can see how easily that funding level can move. If investment returns are a bit lower, we can lose 20%. Inflation's 1% higher, we can lose another 20%. So that 150 can be 110 quite easily. Again, fund officers will continue to monitor inflation trends and will include stress tests on funding strategy and future cash flow modeling to help understand and manage this risk. I wasn't going to talk through all of the points on there, but I was going to move on to point 36 on page 53, which is the planning for the 2025 valuation. Prep work has already started. The fund is reviewing the following areas: employee contributions, the investment strategy, the prudence level, so that's the 75% that we were at earlier, how we treat surpluses, and our risk management of other sources and uncertainty and volatility. Ahead of the 25 valuation, officers will engage early with employers and other stakeholders to plan the valuation. Will monitor employer funding and covenant risks, including early engagement with the biggest and higher risk employers, and engage with all employers ahead of the valuation to build up appropriate messaging around the current economic environment. There's a table at point 42, which shows a timeline to the 31st of March 2025 valuation date. I'll let you have a read of that. It's relatively long, and it does go on beyond the 31st of March as well. I'm happy to take any questions at this stage.
I cannot see any hands up at all, Bhulesh. I think we're all... No hands up. Can we agree to note the report then as set out in the recommendation on page 55? Anybody? Anybody there?
Yes.
Huh?
Chair.
Hello?
Hello.
Oh, Manjit, go on.
Yeah, yes. I'm okay for that, yeah. I agree with you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Manjit. And as Stuart popped up on the screen, I assume, thank you very much, Bhulesh, and it is Stuart for the next report, which is now our local government pension scheme. No, sorry, I am totally out of my depth here. So we are now on report 8. So, and that is page 85 to 96. Over to you, Stuart. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this report is to inform the board of any changes relating to risk management and internal controls of the fund. There's just 3 minor updates to the risk register to report since the latest version was approved by the committee on the 6th of September. At point 12 of the report, risk 4 on the register relating to fund assets and liabilities arising from climate change, that the wording has been updated in respect of the further action column reflecting the new Net Zero Investors Framework 2.0, which has been produced by the Institutional Group for Climate Change. So no changes to the score for this one or the other two that I'm about to refer to. It's really about a change to the wording. Risk 9 at point 13 relates to the in-house AVC provider, and there's been an update to the further action column that has been made to reflect that the national procurement framework that I mentioned earlier on for AVC provision is now live, which the fund has signed up to, and this will enable the fund to commence a future tender to procure for an AVC provider. And then finally, our risk 19 on the register refers to proposed changes to LGPS regulations and guidance, requires change to the fund's investment, pooling and governance processes. And the cause of this risk has been updated to reflect the ongoing pensions review with respect to potential consolidation. Given the unknowns surrounding the review and next steps, no further updates have been made to the risk register yet. But committee and board will be kept informed on related matters. So just a short one from me, Chair. So if there's any questions, happy to take them.
I can see no hands up, and it seems that we will note the report as set out in the recommendation on page 87.15. Can I just check with our newest members, Ellie and Andrew, if you have got any questions? Ellie, Andrew, are you there?
Yes,
Ellie, any questions? Because thank you. Andrew, any questions?
No questions from me.
If there is anything Stuart or Ian or Bulesh can help you with, please don't hesitate to drop an email. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you to all our officers. And that takes us to item 9 on our agenda, and that is any other items which Chairman has decided as urgent, but as I've previously said, there are none. So we're going over to the point of where we're going to close this meeting, and I hate to say to you, happy Halloween and Merry Christmas. Because let me be the first one, because our next meeting is in February next year. So with extreme thanks to all our officers and members on this call. Oh, hang on. Mr. Shepherd, your hand popped up.
Yes, thank you. Could I just check, please, the date of the next in-person training at County Hall?
Angie?
1 second, Chair. I think it's 1st of November.
Ah, good. Thank you. It's in my diary. That's great.
Okay, lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, yes, great. So it is the 1st of November. I forgot we've got a training. But thank you all very much. Hopefully see you at the training. And then I wish you Merry Christmas. And we close this meeting. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks all.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.